Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2. It's a great day to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's jump right in. So Marquise Pouncey and Zach Banner, they come out and they defend Big Ben, and it's about time. It's about time somebody came out and defended Big Ben. Now, I'm sure Joey Porter Sr., when he was saying that Big Ben is the worst of the worst, I would bet my life he's probably referring to the young woman that Ben had the incident with. And I read that police report. And again, I said this yesterday, but I have to start off the show with this because that's a very serious matter. That woman admits in that police report that she wanted Big Ben to get her pregnant because she wanted to have Steelers quarterback babies and that she lied about the entire situation. And that woman should have been prosecuted and jailed for that situation with Big Ben. So if Joey Porter Sr. is referring to that situation, just like Terry Bradshaw did when he went on TV the next day and he opened his big mouth, running his mouth about the situation, but he didn't know anything about it. And that's why Big Ben doesn't talk to him to this day. I'm glad that Marquise Pouncey and Zach Banner came out to defend Big Ben. And then you hear they're like, okay, what was Big Ben's big transgression that he did that he deserved to be mocked by Joey Porter Sr.? And Joey Porter Sr. said, or criticized, Joey Porter Sr. said, he didn't sign autographs for his teammates' family members. But according to him, according to Joey Porter Sr., that makes Big Ben the worst teammate and the worst human being on the planet. But he won't criticize George Pickens or Antonio Brown. So I have to preference this situation with that. Let's jump into the article. Ben, you know, it just makes me laugh. Troy did this to Ben too one time. Oh, and before I forget, the only reason why they're attacking Big Ben is because this is what Big Ben said. Maybe it's time that Tomlin and the Steelers went their separate ways. Nothing vicious, nothing vindictive, nothing with malice, no criticism. That's all he said. And he gets attacked like it's the end of the world. Let me jump into the article. Ben Roethlisberger's former teammates come to his defense, one of the best big bros in football. Banner insists Roethlisberger was there for him, disputing Porter's characterization of a bad teammate. Ben, a.k.a. Seven, is one of the best big bros in football I've ever had, he wrote. In part, when you attack someone's character and question them as a person and not the football player, then you better be perfect in all cylinders of life, and you're not. The same thing goes for Coach Mike Tomlin as a coach. And I'm not speaking cryptic today. Peasy and James Harrison are wrong, and I do believe they're wrong also. Zach Banner also tweeted, I have other stuff this week I want to worry about that is more important than this reality TV drama that's circulating around Pittsburgh Steelers football today. But when someone is wrong and picks on a friend, brother, like they did, you all know it's my nature to speak up. He also tweeted, and watch how many of you soft JAGs who thought my comment earlier was going to bandwagon with the rest of those guys and had the nerve to think I would ever turn my back on someone who literally held me during the most traumatic event in my life so far. Go back and delete, or I can't pull the rest up for some reason. And then he posts a picture of Ben and him on the bench. Another of Roethlisberger's former teammates, Devlin Duck Hodges, also appeared to defend him against Porter's accusations. He simply posted 3 yawning emojis, captioning a picture of himself and Roethlisberger. The veteran quarterback who suffered a season-ending elbow injury, Hodges, 1 year in Pittsburgh, is shown using his non-dominant left hand with a big grin on his face to give the rookie college free agent quarterback a high five. He is also wearing a headset with Hodges' uniform, possibly suggesting Roethlisberger had a line to his ear in the game. Oh, I didn't see this picture. Excuse me. While some current and former Steelers seem to support Joey Porter Sr.'s comments, it's less clear which of them echoed his comments specifically about Big Ben. The two-time Super Bowl winner came under fire along with another former Steeler, James Harrison, for comments made about former head coach Mike Tomlin. Essentially, Porter accused them of breaking the brotherhood for their comments, adding they were among the last ones who should speak up. Oh, really? Isn't that so ironic coming from Joey Porter Sr., a guy that can never shut his mouth ever? Porter, of course, took it to about the fullest extent of one could by calling Roethlisberger a bad person. Earlier in his career, Roethlisberger faced multiple allegations of sexual misconduct, which I just addressed. One incident resulted in him serving a 4-game suspension, a reduction from 6 games. Porter did not specify whether he was referring to these public allegations among other things. Yes, of course he was. Of course he was, and we all know that he was. Roethlisberger has his own podcast, so time will tell to whether he responds to Porter's harsh words. The two were teammates for 3 years at the start of Roethlisberger's career. Porter later returned to the Steelers as a coach. Roethlisberger has owned up to being a bad teammate earlier in his career, but improved as he grew older. And what's being a bad teammate? He's 20. Ben Roethlisberger is the youngest quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl. So at 22 years old, who isn't selfish at 22 years old? Who doesn't? For the most part, what 22-year-old doesn't think the world revolves around him at 22? Never mind being a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, it's so amazing that the same teammates that are criticizing Ben for being cocky and he's this and that, but when he was playing football and he was cocky and he was confident and he was the gunslinger and he was winning Super Bowl championships at 22 years old, then you loved him. Then he was the best thing ever. But this story has one thing in common. You know what the big story is here? Anybody that tells the truth about Mike Tomlin and his horrible coaching, for the last 9 years, that the Steelers have lost the last 5 playoff games by double digits and that the scheme wasn't working anymore. Anybody who criticizes Tomlin has to be attacked by multiple people because nobody's allowed to tell the truth about Tomlin. That's the real story here. The real story is Joey Porter Sr., just like Art Rooney, because Art Rooney was going to let Mike Tomlin coach the Steelers as long as he wanted to. He was willing to keep running. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And that's what Joey Porter Sr. wanted. That's what racist Ryan Clark wanted. That's what all these Tomlin underwear sniffers wanted. They wanted Tomlin to be able to, it was like a movie, the perfect ending. He could just leave whenever he wanted to, no big deal. And nobody's allowed to criticize him or boo. And that's why this whole incident started. Because Big Ben said, maybe it's time Tomlin and the Steelers went in different directions. Oh my God, that's such a horrible. That is so terrible, isn't it? So finally, Marquise Pouncey, Mike Tomlin's center, he comes out. If you against Big Ben, you against me. Marquise Pouncey delivers message to Roethlisberger critics. Thank God. There's been plenty of drama surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers since Wednesday morning. Joey Porter Sr. called out Ben Roethlisberger and James Harrison for their podcast comments surrounding Mike Tomlin on Cam Hayward's Not Just Football podcast. Porter was particularly critical of Roethlisberger, who he said was not a good teammate, and criticized Roethlisberger as a person. There's been support and criticism of Porter's comments from former Steelers. Mason Rudolph, sit this one out for real, because you have nobody to blame but yourself for being a shitty quarterback. It's not Ben's job to make you a better quarterback. So when you're like, yeah, preach it, you sound like a total idiot, like that mustache. Roethlisberger's former center and longtime friend Marquise Pouncey called out any criticism against Roethlisberger in a post on Instagram. It's unbelievable the hate I've been seeing from people inside the family, especially when we all a call away. If you against Big Ben, F you against me. Clout is a disease. One love, Pouncey wrote on Instagram. There's a picture of him and Ben. This is just typical Porter Sr. always running his big mouth, and I'm glad he's not on the coaching staff. So Maybe Miami Dolphins need a coach, Joey Porter Sr. You could head down there, head to the club, take your shirt off, dance on tables, maybe a little ecstasy, Special K, you and Michael Irvin. You want to talk about that, Joey Porter Sr., if you want to throw stones, allegedly, you want to talk about that? Now, I believe that, let's move on. I think that Peyton Wilson needs to be moved to strong safety. Maybe he'll see the field better. He's 6'4", he runs a 4.4 40. He could play up on the line of scrimmage from the strong safety position. He could rush the passer. He could drop in coverage. He could play the run adequately. Maybe this change will be good for Peyton Wilson. I think if anybody could do it, I think Peyton Wilson could do it. There's this article about Peyton Wilson. His Pro Football Focus grade is kind of low. Maybe he needs a position change. I think he's very athletic. He needs to get on the field somehow. The article went on to say, I was as confident in linebacker Peyton Wilson as I was in any Pittsburgh Steelers player in 2025. As a rookie, he laid a solid foundation, and with his athleticism, work ethic, and effort, seemed ready to break out as a sophomore. Health is the biggest red flag out of NC State. Hasn't been the issue. He's been durable and available every step of the way. And yet, Wilson did not take that jump. His second year was much like his first, not terrible, but underwhelming in usage and performance, leaving me to wonder what his ceiling and future might be. Yeah, but you know what this article conveniently leaves out? He was being coached by Coach Tomlin and Terrell Austin, so maybe that's the problem. Did anybody think of that, or you're not allowed to talk about that? See, this is like the forbidden rule in Pittsburgh, right? This is like the golden rule. Nobody's allowed to criticize Tomlin ever. You're not even allowed to boo him. That's the golden rule in Pittsburgh now. Opting not to use a single snap of dime defense the entire season, Pittsburgh banked on its athleticism at inside linebacker to win out. Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, two guys who would lead a 40-yard dash, but that speed hasn't translated into coverage. Both have been average in coverage, and that might be charitable. In fairness, truly good coverage linebackers are rare, and the league only has a handful of them. But Wilson didn't offer enough, especially for someone who believed he could be the NFL's best at the job. He had one impressive showing as part of Pittsburgh's takeaway fest against the Indianapolis Colts, picking off one pass and tipping another that fell into Jack Sawyer's arms. But those plays weren't evident the rest of the season. Per our charting, he allowed 76% of his targets to be completed and allowed one touchdown. But in all fairness, though, he's covering, for the most part, running backs out of the backfield, little screen passes, swing passes, quick passes. I mean, sometimes they do a deeper, swing pass out of the backfield. Remember, though, the big elephant in the room, who was he coached by? Tomlin and Austin. Probably wasn't in the best position to make plays. Do I think Peyton Wilson would probably have better numbers or a better career under Mike McCarthy? Yeah, I do. Do I think he has the athletic ability to make the switch to strong safety? Yes, I do. Though I'm not careful to lean on PFF's grades, especially anything in coverage, it's worth noting how poorly he ranked. A lowly 35th out of 50 qualifiers, a big regression from an 8th place finish as a rookie. It isn't just about his coverage. In fact, that might be the more minor of his concerns. Run defense has been the bigger question. Checkered medical history aside, Wilson's on-field knock at NC State was his run defense. While tall and severe lack of length, 30.5 inches, is unusual for someone of his height. Last offseason, we noted his hesitancy to trust and read his keys and play downhill, causing him to be late to fill his gap and stuff the run. For this whole arm thing, can we give it a rest, please? His hesitancy might be from Coach Tomlin and Terrell Austin's scheme, because there was a lot of talk in the beginning of the year that it was too complicated and they needed to make it simpler. And then a couple weeks later, the defense was happier so I am willing to bet under McCarthy, Peyton Wilson has a much better year. Wilson began the season as an every down player alongside Patrick Queen. His role slowly shrank throughout, and by the year's end, He ended his same spot as 2025, a purely nickel package player who was ignored in base downs. For the season, Wilson played in just 85 of the team's 337 base groupings, be it 3-4 or 4-4 personnel. That's just 25.2% of those 87. A whopping 53/60.9% came in the first 2 weeks against the New York Jets and Seattle Seahawks. Over that span, Pittsburgh allowed 249 rushing yards to running backs. With Wilson on the field in those base looks, the Steelers gave up nearly 6 yards per carry. I don't know. You got to take this with a grain. Even with Keanu Benton, it's very, when you see the defensive problems, is it the players or is it the scheme? And I would think it's mostly the scheme. If I had to bet, I would think it's the scheme. I'm willing to give these players another year, another chance, even Keanu Benton. But Keanu Benton needs to go to defensive end. He's not going to be a nose tackle, zero technique, or play on the inside. He's 6'5", 315, but he's kind of lean. He needs to be a defensive end in the base defense. But I think these players deserve, chances, another chance under new coaches and new leadership for the Steelers. I didn't see this at all. Ravens cornerback Marlon Humphrey shades DK Metcalf after Super Bowl. I might feel some type of way. My feelings don't get hurt too often, Humphrey said on Twitter. But if I left the team, then they won the Super Bowl after, I might feel some type of way. That's funny. I didn't even think of that. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I forgot all about that. And the Seattle Seahawks wanted to resign Metcalf. He's the one that said no. Metcalf wanted out of there, and they were going to give him monster money. And then he comes to the Steelers, and oh boy, he's probably kicking himself, huh? I mean, I know he's getting paid a lot of money, but I want that ring. If I win a Super Bowl, even if I won a Rose Bowl ring, I'm sleeping with that sucker on my finger. It's never coming off, ever. So he's got, that's pretty fun. I didn't even think about that. DK Metcalf leaves the Seahawks to come to the Steelers and they win the Super Bowl. Ouch. Leave it to Marlon Humphrey, though. Mike Florio always making moronic statements. Leave it to Mike Florio. Florio, it's fair to ask Ben Roethlisberger. Florio, it's fair to ask if Ben Roethlisberger got the most out of his talent. Yeah, this is the same idiot that brags that he pounds the desk for George Pickens and he wears his jersey to get street cred. Leave it to Florio. I think it's fair to ask whether or not he got the most out of his talent, Florio said Thursday on the Pro Football Talk podcast. It's possible if he was more committed and more emotionally intelligent. It's always some dig at the Steelers. If Ben was more emotionally intelligent. Okay, Florio, name a quarterback that you think is smarter than Ben. How do you know how emotionally intelligent he is? Huh, Florio? Were you ever in the meeting rooms? Were you ever on the field? And here, Florio, let me point this out to you. Mike Tomlin isn't a wizard. He's not a coaching juggernaut here. He's not a John Gruden. He's not a Mike McCarthy, a offensive wizard. So for the most part, Big Ben is like running the show. And you want to question his intelligence, Florio? I mean, kind of like I question your takes, idiotic. Ugh. He would have gotten more out of his teammates, out of his talent, and he would have had more than 2 rings. Really? Did you ever think Coach Tomlin was the problem? Did that ever cross your mind, Florio? Or you don't want to say that because you don't want to lose your street cred, right, Florio? Clown. That's all he does is dump on the Steelers, and I can't stand Florio. I'm from Pittsburgh. Sure you are. What's the matter? You mad they didn't draft you or something? Roethlisberger was one of the... Here we go. Chris Sims told a story how there are some examples to back up Florio's claim. Chris Sims told a story during that same podcast that perfectly encapsulates who Roethlisberger was as a player. He was a little bit like John Wayne, Sims says. He just wanted to be like, howdy, partner. I'm here and now I'm ready to save the day. That's how he was. You saw me one of the first training camps I ever worked with you. He didn't know how he gripped the football. That's usually pretty rare with Hall of Fame-ish type quarterbacks. Well, I never even thought about it, which in its own right is amazing. He's just going to go out, play, and use his natural. You know what, Sims? Who are you? Really? You want to question somebody's ability at quarterback, Chris Sims? Wow. This is what made Ben great. His ad-libbing, his athleticism, his approach to the game. Right? Ben had a different approach to the game, obviously. And he had a coach that was like, here, take the keys, you drive the Lamborghini. So he's pretty much doing everything. You know, Florio wants to question intelligence. Then Sims, the other moron, wants to question, you know, the way he played the game. And it's just like, you know what, dude, he got the most out of his talent. He got the most out of his ability. I mean, this is just like an ignorant statement to say this about Big Ben. They're human beings. They're not robots. You know, so Ben liked to drink a couple beers off the field, whatever. Does that make him a bad person? Does that make him a less of a quarterback? Because he's down to earth and want to have a beer in a bar somewhere? It's just like, you know what, Florio, shut the F up. Seriously. And Chris Sims, you shouldn't be criticized. You should know better than to criticize Big Ben as far as the way he played the game. Your career wasn't exactly Peyton Manning. Steelers finalized 2026 coaching staff with 2 more hires. Too bad I wasn't one of them. All right, I'm not even gonna read this, but the Steelers are done hiring coaches. We got to help. Man, we went from having the smallest coaching staff in all of football for the last 19 years, and now we got 150 coaches. Got to get familiar with all their names. I was reading. I saw before that players are comparing. Oh, here we go. Now I love Caleb Downs from Ohio State. I think he's a blue chip. I've seen him play 4 games, and I do think he's an elite player. But just because you're an elite player in college doesn't mean that it's going to pan out in the NFL. You already have Ryan Wilson compares Ohio State safety Caleb Downs to Steelers legend Troy Polamalu. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but let's read the article. Troy Polamalu is one of the best Pittsburgh Steelers ever. They selected him in the first round of the 2003 draft, and he built an incredible legacy. Polamalu was a 4-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, and the 2010 NFL Defensive Player of the Year. While Polamalu felt like a one-of-a-kind player, analyst Ryan Wilson sees him in Ohio State safety Caleb Downs as one of the top prospects in this year's draft. I'm not overstating it when my comp for him is you squint and you put a little wig on him. Troy Polamalu, Wilson said recently on CBS Sports HQ. Troy Polamalu was drafted in the middle of the first round 23 years ago. The Steelers came up to get him. Today, Troy Polamalu is a top 5 pick. I think Caleb Downs brings that sort of versatility. He's also similar in size in that he's only going to be 5'10", maybe 5'11", around 200 pounds. He plays like Troy Polamalu in the middle of the field as a free safety, in the box as a linebacker, coming off the edge and slot. Wherever you want him, he will do it. Downs began his collegiate career in 2023 at the University of Alabama, but he transferred to Ohio State for his last 2 seasons. Excuse me, Downs. Downs had 107 tackles, 2 interceptions, 4 passes defense, 3.5 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery as a true freshman. He's done nothing but improve since then, too. Downs was one of the best players in the country last year. He had 68 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, 2 passes defended, 5 tackles for a loss, and 2 forced fumbles in 2025. That led him to winning the Jim Thorpe Award, which is given to college football's best defensive back. And now, Draft expert Dane Bolger was asked, fun question I've been asking to scouts. Caleb Downs is the best safety prospect you ever personally scouted since? A few have answered ever, saying this is the best safety that they've ever seen. Well, that's a pretty steep step. I mean, if you scouted Ed Reed, if you scouted, I don't scouts might not be around from Ronnie Lott's time, but he is a very good player. He is an excellent player. But the one thing that I really like more than any of his athletic ability, I watched a couple interviews of his. Let me make sure I'm saying Caleb Downs. Yeah, I watched a couple interviews of his during college football season when he first went to Ohio State, and his serious, the way he is about preparation and how he takes the game very serious and his focus. He really reminds me of Minka in a lot of ways mentally, like his approach and seriousness to the game. And that quality, more than any other quality, really makes me want to draft him, for the Steelers to use a pick on him. So he's an excellent player. It remains to be seen if he's going to be the next Troy Polamalu. Those are big shoes to fill without playing it down in the NFL. But the athletic ability is there. And most importantly, the most important thing about him is his attitude and his approach to football and the way he takes the game very serious. And I couldn't deal with a player. Me as a coach, I couldn't deal with a player who doesn't take the game seriously. I don't, who lacks intensity. Like I'll give you the perfect example of this. Now it might just be my opinion, but Howie Long's son, Chris Long, he always seemed like when he was playing football, like it wasn't important to him. He would always, make stupid statements or, it just seemed like it wasn't important to him. Like he had other things going on. Like football's not everything. I got other things to do. I don't want that type of guy. I'm not drafting that type of player. You got a very small window to perform in the NFL, 10 to 13 years maximum. And I want a guy that's going to give me everything he has every day until that 10 or 13 years is over. I want a guy that's going to put football first before anything. You're a young guy. When you start playing in NFL, you're a young man. And that window closes pretty quickly. And if you get drafted in the first round and from the jump, you're not taking it serious, I don't want you. And that's what I really like about Caleb Downs. You could tell the game means something to him. And I feel that way about Derek Harmon too. That's one of the things I really like about Derek Harmon is it's my impression that the game really means something to him. And a lot of these players today, it doesn't mean it. It's a check. It's, oh, look at me. I'm on social media. Look at me. I'm a YouTuber. It seems like the game is like third, fourth, and fifth on their mind. I want players. I want Pittsburgh Steelers. I want guys that wear the black and gold who the game really means something to them. And I think Caleb Downs is definitely that guy. Idiot Ryan Clark, racist Ryan Clark. Malik Willis could be Steelers quarterback of the next decade. Yeah, sure, racist Ryan Clark. I mean, I'm sure there's political reasons why you're saying that, but whatever. I want the Pittsburgh Steelers to move on from Aaron Rodgers and acquire Malik Willis. His passing has now ascended. He's pushing the football down the field, Clark said this week on Inside the NFL. Now under Mike McCarthy, you're not just piecemealing or putting a Band-Aid on the quarterback position. You're getting possibly your quarterback of the next decade. Well, I wouldn't listen to anything that racist Ryan Clark has to say because he's just an idiot. And, there's always he always has ulterior motives for the things that he's saying. And usually it revolves around race and politics. So I got to look at Malik Willis's film a little more, the all 22 film. I'm sure racist Ryan Clark hasn't looked at it one time, but that's a whole different video. Just like he wanted Mike Tomlin to draft Shedeur Sanders last year in the first round. We all know what a disaster that would have been. But hey, it's just like, I really wish Art Rooney would ban this moron from the practices in August. He's a race baiting clown and he single-handedly has destroyed ESPN and has made it unwatchable. Let me see what else is going on in Steeler world. So there's some reports about Mike Tomlin's future coming out from Rich Eisen. I'm hearing it's television. Rich Eisen drops breadcrumb regarding Mike Tomlin's future. Well, that ought to be interesting. Mike Tomlin was the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach for almost 20 years. He accomplished a lot, including never having a losing, never had a losing season. One game above 500, but no one stays in the NFL forever. And never had a losing season. So the last 10 years, we finished one game above 500. Anyway, the team failed to win a playoff game, and Tomlin left like it was time for him to step down. While he's not expected to coach this year, Rich Eisen offered a small hint at what Tomlin's next step could be. The Texans absolutely beat them down into a pulp and sent Mike Tomlin into what appears to be a brave new world. Eisen said recently on his show, "I'm hearing it's television right now, just dropping a breadcrumb." Eisen started working for ESPN in 1996 after leaving there in 2003. Eisen joined NFL Network, and he still works there today. Additionally, he's had his own show for over a decade, and he returned to ESPN last year. Yeah, lucky him. Who the hell wants to work at ESPN? Eisen's got a lot of connections in that television world, so it's reasonable to believe that he's got a decent source. Reports indicate that Tomlin is done with coaching for the time being. He's focused on spending time with his family. That makes sense considering how much of his time was taken up by the NFL. Working in television would be less demanding, though. Tomlin would still be involved with football while still having time for his family. Any network would likely love to have Tomlin, too. I guess you haven't seen too many of Mike Tomlin's. This ought to be interesting, seeing Mike Tomlin on everyday TV talking about football. I can't wait to see it. I'm not going to make any predictions if it's going to be good or bad because you're just going to call me a Tomlin hater. But I've watched plenty of Mike Tomlin's press conferences, so it should be very, very interesting if he is on TV every single day. Oh, I can't wait. I'm sure we won't be allowed to criticize his performance there either. And listen, you probably, he hates Mike. I don't hate Mike Tomlin. I wanted him. Nobody wanted him to be more successful than me. But when it wasn't working, it wasn't working. The 2025 season just ended, so Tomlin has a lot of time to make decisions on his future. He wouldn't be the first to walk away from coaching and step into a television role. Bill Cowher is an example that Steelers fans are familiar with. Sean Payton also did it a few years ago. Although he returned to coaching after only a year as an analyst, perhaps Tomlin will follow a similar path. Well, who's that receiver that's always on TV bashing the Steelers in front of Bill Cowher with the stupid suits? I can't think of his name. Hold on, let me look it up real quick because I want to say something. I'm trying to think on the fly. Hold on, give me a minute. Oh, you know who it is? Well, hopefully Tomlin gets to sit next to Bill Cowher, and when Nate Burleson is making his stupid comments directed at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they both can jump on him and beat the crap out of him. They could tag team him off the top rope. I would pay to see that. I'd pay to see Coach Cowher get a Nate Burleson, in a camel clutch, and then Coach Tomlin comes off the top rope and leg drops him across the throat. Wouldn't that be awesome? I think so. Because I really can't stand Nate Burleson either, wearing his grandmother's suits on TV every time he's on television. Another guy that likes to cross dress and wear high heels, but hey, that's a different video. Leave it to Chad Johnson. I'm going to end it with this. He talks about when the Bengals played the Steelers. Are we even trying to win? Chad Johnson reveals he lost it during 2005 Steelers-Bengals playoff game. Go figure. This is my only a-hole moment, Johnson said recently on his Nightcap podcast. It's halftime. I'm getting the IV. We come in. I'm hot because Carson goes down. Why are we not including me in the offense? Why are we allowing the Steelers to dictate what we're doing in a playoff game, a game of this importance? I lost it. I snatched the IV out of my hand. I came out of the room, blood flying everywhere. I swear to God, I lost it. And I came out and I'm fussing. I'm not screaming at anybody directly. I'm just snapping in general. Get me the effing ball. Give me the ball. It's not that hard. I can do whatever you want me to do. Just give me the ball. Are we even trying to win? Johnson posted one of his best seasons of his career in 2005. He caught 97 passes for 1,432 yards and 9 touchdowns, earning first team All Pro honors for the first time. The Bengals look like a favorite to win the AFC. However, Johnson didn't have much of an impact against the Steelers in the playoffs with 4 catches for 59 yards. Despite Johnson catching 2 passes for 30 in the first 2 quarters, the Bengals led 17-14 at halftime. Well, nothing brings me more joy to hear that Chad Ochocinco lost his mind during a Steelers game. I loved when Brian Russell, the safety on the Browns, absolutely lit him up. What a great day that was. But I can't wait to see Debo and Chad Johnson box. Hopefully, Debo can shut his mouth for a long period of time. All right. And I'm going to end it with that. Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2.